Now, in just a few minutes, we will be joined by Marianne Faithfull. And I thought since we started off the show by playing a whole bunch of summer's ending, summer's almost gone kind of songs, that we could play a real old, real early Marianne Faithfull song to usher her into the studio. She'll probably despise me for playing this. But it's called Summer Nights. No, that wasn't it. Oh, boy. I almost blew something really important there. Oh, well. Here it is. Now it's called Summer Nights. Nope, still not. What's with this machine today? I hate when this happens. I hate when this CD machine just has a mind of its own and it queues up whatever song it wants to play. Someday I should just let it do that. I should just let it take over and see. Maybe it'll do a much better show than I'm capable of doing. Oh, that's a short song. Yeah. Marianne, that's a short.
They were always very short.
There you go. We're just saying hello here. We're just and the record ran out. So do you hate me for playing that?
No.
Ancient.
I just haven't heard it for a long time. But
Summer Nights.
Yeah.
What, 1965 or something like that, right? 64, 65, 66, something like that?
65.
Yeah.
I think it was almost my last single from that period.
Was it really? Yeah. It is my pleasure to welcome to Idiot's Delight tonight a woman who has been both denounced as a witch by the Vatican and labeled a professor of poetry in the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poets by Allen Ginsberg.
Oh, yes.
And anybody who can do both is, just like a winner in my book, certainly.
Thank you.
Marianne Faithfull is here. How nice to meet you after all these years. I feel like I've grown up with you. Well, you and I we're pretty much the same age, and I was one of those, boys who at age 18 or 19, when you were making your first records, had a serious crush on Marianne Faithfull, because you had that incredible look, But that look was sort of what made you a pop star. It wasn't so much a desire on your part, as I read in your autobiography that has just been published called Faithful. That look was what made somebody sort of point to you at a party somewhere and say, her. Yes.
Andrew Oldham.
Can you move the microphone a little bit closer to Marianne? There you go. That's good. Terrific.
No, I can't see you. Oh, right, yes.
There you go.
No, I've always heard, in the book it's a slightly different story. I think David got that story out of Andrew, but what Andrew told me...
David Dalton being the guy who wrote the book
yes.
With you. Okay.
But Andrew told me that he just saw that I had a commercial face, which I always liked, that one.
Now, Andrew Oldham was the Rolling Stones manager at the time.
Yes. And
he just looked at you and just felt that the look was...
Yes, it was. I mean, I did, I suppose. It was that time, Jane Asher really was the sort of ultimate one, and there was Julie Christie.
Right. So it was long blonde hair, bangs.
Jane had red hair.
Okay,
but it was the same look.
Right.
And I must have fitted into that. I didn't know, but I didn't care either. But I did.
So would you think of him then as being a kind of a Svengali figure?
Yes,
yeah, you like
it. Without Andrew Oldham, I would not be sitting here today talking to you. No. It's all Andrew's fault. Yeah.
And is it true that he then turned to Mick and Keith and the Rolling Stones and said, write a song for her?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, that's a fact. Not then and there. But, I mean, I personally think, although it's obviously nice that's the story, but personally I think they had the song knocking around anyway. But Andrew realized that it wasn't really a song for the Rolling Stones, and it wasn't. It was As Tears Go By, and it was obviously a song for me.
That was not the original title. right? Wasn't the original
That's right.
title As
It was
Time Goes By?
Yes.
And somebody somewhere along the line said, oh, wait a minute.
Andrew changed it.
Yeah, he said,
yes.
hold it, there is a very famous, successful song with that title, maybe we should change it.
Yeah.
So Andrew Oldham changed it to As Tears Go By.
Well, apparently, yes. I hate saying everything I say is gospel, but I believe he did, yes.
Yeah. Now, did your version of it come out before the Stones?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yours was, and it was your song.
Yes, yes. And to all, I mean, sort of everybody believes it was written for me, and I must admit, even I believe it now. Well, I just don't know. I'm not quite sure. You know, my basic rule with David Dalton, and it worked very well, was if I wasn't there, we can't really write about it.
Uh-huh.
So I try to stick, or make David stick, to the things that I was there.
What?
So I wasn't obviously there when they wrote As Tears Go By, so I don't really know how it happened, but I like that story, that he locked them in the kitchen and said, write me a song with, I can't remember it, brick walls.
Oh, yeah, right. There's a whole quote in the book about that. Yeah. But, you know, what the heck? Those stories are probably they're great stories. You might as well go with them. It's so long now since all that stuff happened anyhow, you know.
Yeah. At the time, it irritated me because what came out, I think, was that somehow, because I was a pretty girl, I suppose, was that I must have been having an affair with one of the Rolling Stones for them to write that song for me, which of course wasn't true, because I was 17 and I didn't run away with Mick Jagger for another 2 years.
Right.
So when you're young, you mind these things, so I did mind. But, of course it doesn't really matter now.
So you just, in the spirit of the 60s, in the spirit of that time, you just went along with it. You just said, well, okay, I'll make a record. I'll be a pop star.
Well, I didn't know what that meant, honestly. I mean, I really didn't. I did it because I am, of course, game for things like that. You know, like I'm very interested in all these sorts of things. And I had a lovely voice. And in my heart of hearts, I must have believed it somewhere, what Andrew said to me. I'm going to make you a star, baby. I mean, there was another part of me that was very, very sort of ambivalent about it, but that's how I am. I've always been ambivalent.
Well, you had a sort of an interesting upbringing. Your family on both your mother's and your father's side were kind of interesting.
Very,
on the mother's
very.
side, your mother was a baroness.
My mother was a
or
dancer, too, you see, so she...
Sort of a free spirit.
Yes, she was, yes, in Berlin in the 30s, before the war.
Pronounce the name of the family.
Sacher Masoch.
Sacher
Masoch.
Which the Masoch part gave the world masochism, and he was he's like your great grandfather.
Great uncle Leopold.
Great uncle. He wrote a book
called Venus in Furs.
Venus in Furs.
Venus in Pelts.
Yeah, right. Which the Velvet Underground, Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground turned into a song.
Yeah.
And that's the book from which the phrase masochism.
Yes, it's kind of amazing being related to Leopold Sacher Masoch. Of course, I just take it for granted. But
there certainly is an element of a masochistic tendency in Marianne Faithfull's story.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. Not literally. You know, I think.
You don't think that you courted all sorts of pain at times?
Well, it just certainly looks like that now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
But I didn't think of I certainly didn't do that. No, I didn't. I wasn't. I really was a little girl looking for excitement, romance, and all those wonderful things, not for pain at all. I mean, every woman has a certain bit of masochism. All women have a slight touch of masochism in them. But mine was never sort of a medical condition.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. You were a little Catholic girl, too, which I think is perhaps important. Spent time in convent schools and that whole thing.
Yeah, well, I was brought up in a convent. Yeah. I didn't become a Catholic till I was 8. So, in a way, if what the Jesuits say is true, give me a child until they're 6 and it will be mine forever. My Catholicism was obviously grafted on. It didn't go that deep.
Right.
But still, it took me nearly a lifetime to deprogram myself. So I must have gone quite deep.
As it does for many of us, to deprogram ourselves from that. But wasn't part of what you got involved in that period, 1965-66, of rebellion against that upbringing?
I'm sure it was, yes. Mm. I was just dying to get out of Reading, you know. That's where I grew up.
What was Reading like?
Reading is just like, I don't know what the equivalent would be.
Is it industrial or suburban?
No, it's a sort of, it's quite near London. It's just the sort of, it's not exactly suburban.
Yeah.
It's just I think they call them dormitory towns.
Oh, yeah, like bedroom communities, right? You know, like some of the towns up in Connecticut and over in Jersey, people commute.
It's really dull,
you
know?
Yeah.
And I found it really dull anyway. And I was dying to get out of Reading and get out of school and get out of all of it. And Andrew Oldham, by asking me to record as Tisca, I kind of did that for me, you know. He sprung me.
Now, you were at a party, right?
Yes. Now, it wasn't just any old party. It was quite a fancy party, and it was 1964. And I was with my first boyfriend, who I was going to marry later and have my son with, John Dunbar. And John was a great friend of Peter Asher, from Peter and Gordon.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney was going out with Jane Asher, who was Peter Asher's sister. It was all very complicated. And I went to this party with John, my John, and of course everybody was there. Everybody who was anybody at that moment was at this party. It was a launch party of a new girl singer called Adrian Poster, and of course John Lennon was there, and Paul McCartney, and all the Beatles, George Harrison, and Mick and Keith and Brian and Andrew.
This is like right in the height of that swinging mod London,
it
right?
Definitely was that bit, yeah.
It's all those great black and white movies from that period that captured it, Blow Up and all those kind of
that
films.
one. No, Blow Up wasn't black and white.
Was it?
No,
that one was in color?
But there was a wonderful one by Dick. It was a Dick Lester movie. Oh God, with Rita Tushingham in it. Not that one. No. It was the one about where all the girls are lining up.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Terrence Stamp was
I can't remember either.
I can't.
You know who just died this week? Lindsay Anderson, the filmmaker.
Did he?
Yeah, there was an obit in the Times the other day who made a couple of classic, one of the great movies about revolution and the ruling class.
Yeah.
An absolutely hysterical movie with Peter O'Toole as a sort of Christ-like figure, an aristocrat who thought he was Jesus. and eventually wound up...
A common delusion among the aristocratic classes. Yes.
So, I mean, to consider that this period that you're talking about and these people and the relationships that eventually you got involved in have become a part of pop mythology.
Yeah.
That it's almost as if we're talking about the gods on Olympus, and Peter Asher was there, and Mick Jagger, and Marianne Faithfull was the young virgin being sacrificed on the altar of whatever. I mean, it's like, it's like, and it's not, it's you, you're a real person whose name is really Marianne Faithfull.
Really,
your father's name was Faithfull.
My father is Glyn Faithfull.
Yeah. See,
my grandfather was Theodore Faithfull, and on and on and on. But I have to sort of remember that to young people now, to young people today, this is like the 18th century or something.
And for you, it's your life, and it's your past.
I'm delighted if it turns people on. That's all right. I guess I mustn't take it too much for granted. You see, I don't know anything else. So to me, it was just that's how it was. I went to that party. John and I went really not because of all these wonderful people. I remember quite clearly going, we were very poor. John was a student at Cambridge. I never used to get enough to eat when I came up to London. And I knew that at these parties you would have this fabulous feast laid out, and indeed there was. And all this thing, when this was all going on with Andrew Oldham and whatever they saw, I was actually focusing on getting myself fed.
Oh, that's
as
great.
it was going on.
Right.
So obviously that nothing really changes. This is always my main sort of interest.
Food,
sleep,
survival.
Those kind of things, yes. But I guess I must have wanted it. I must have wanted something like, I don't really remember Andrew ever saying, "I'll make you a star," but I'm sure he did. And something about that must have made my heart beat faster in some way.
And it turned into this. Recording that was released in 1965 and became a huge international hit. The first recording from Marianne Faithfull. And then the Stones eventually did record it, I believe, on, was it Between the Buttons that they finally did it on?
Or? On very obscure forms. The first time I heard a recording of the Rolling Stones doing This Tears Goodbye was in Italian.
Really?
Yeah. It never really came out on it. I don't think it's on Between the Buttons.
Oh, you know what? I'm confusing it with Ruby Tuesday.
Yeah,
Ruby Tuesday.
That's another matter.
There's an interesting thing in your book about Ruby Tuesday where you talk about Brian Jones being enamored of two entirely different kinds of music and trying to unite them on that. The old blues of Robert Johnson.
Elizabethan air.
Yeah, and when you stop and think about
Skip James and Lord Essex or something. Yes, I like that.
And he was like in the studio with the flute or the whistle or something like that, playing that thing.
It really is.
Marianne Faithfull has a book that has just come out that I have spent the last 2 nights. I've spent the last 2 nights with you, Marianne.
Oh, darling.
It's been quite an experience. Good. I'll tell you. About halfway through this book, Faithfull, I lost all of my sort of cynical disbelief, that goes along with rock biographies written with people,
A bit of cynicism is a good thing.
Yeah, because most of these books tend to be sort of self-glorifying, self-serving kinds of things. Yeah, but about halfway through this book, as you are becoming just as hard on yourself as you are on anybody else. You don't pull any punches, really, in this book. There's a moment, I don't know when it was for me, where you just became extremely real. The voice in the book is certainly a vivid one. It's certainly not David Dalton's voice.
Oh, no,
it's your voice.
Very much like how I really am.
Did you tape record stuff with him? You didn't actually sit down and literally write any of this, did you?
I can write songs, but I'm not up for the long haul. If they'd left it to me, it would never have got done. No, we did absolutely millions of tapes, hours and hours. He came to Ireland, he came to London, but really the main work of this book and the way he must have got the voice, which even now I'm surprised at how much it gets my turn of phrase and how I think. We came on tape on down the phone. We did a lot of that. And
so do you know what I'm saying though about there's a point at which as a reader you just sort of go, oh my God, and you just kind of fall in love with this woman. Well,
you certainly believe.
Yeah.
I know that. I knew, and it was essential that. That was why it took so long, the book. And why it was so hard, because it had to be at least my version of the truth. And not only did it have to be the truth, but the reader, had to feel that, you see. There has to be a moment where the reader thinks, and you can always tell. There's something, what do they call it, authenticity. You can just tell. If somebody's really lying, you can tell. And if they're not, you can also tell. And so obviously, somewhere in there is this moment where you feel it's real. And truth, obviously, I hate to get all like this, but it's quite fun. Truth is relative, as we know. So my truth wouldn't necessarily be yours, or wouldn't necessarily be someone else's. But once I had made up my mind to really work towards finding what my truth was, I stopped worrying about it, and I think that worked.
Did you have to go through a period? There's been a lot of publicity about the book, about some of the you know, the relationship with Jagger and the whole thing about you and Mick in bed one day, and Keith is in the next room, and Mick says, you know, what I really want is, I mean, like everybody, all the gossip columnists jumped on that.
Well, I
like,
don't understand it, man. I mean, it's a big deal. It's an interesting story.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, everybody sort of knows that Mick and Keith have been skirting around each other for years.
Well,
you know.
Obviously, it's never acted on, this stuff, and I never say it is.
Yeah.
But I know, as well as everyone else knows, underneath every work of great art, there's always it's obvious that the way you do these things is you use your sexual energy. Nothing has to be done, nothing has to be acted on. It's an interesting story. And I'd never thought of it as being that dreadful at all. To me, it's what all artists, especially in our highly ambiguous field of sort of, what is rock and roll? It's basically sex and seduction, isn't it?
Sex and seduction and,
well, it's got
and some sort of anarchy in there as well, you know. And
defiance,
right.
Throw a bit of that in, and a good dash of cynicism, and you've got a cocktail.
Right. And certainly that period was there was such an androgynous thing happening, especially in England at the time. I mean,
especially in England at the time. Not, of course, here in the United States, where we're all so healthy.
Right.
But you decadent English
Thank you
very
much.
Androgynous.
Thank you, Marianne.
Bullshit. You were just as androgynous in New York City as we were in London, and I'm sure of that.
Okay. Now,
but,
you were present at... I was always curious about this, your relationship with Allen Ginsberg. I was recently in Boulder, as a matter of fact, last weekend.
There?
I was out in Boulder.
Homage to Allen Ginsberg.
I was not at the Allen Ginsberg thing, but there were still posters up, and there were still like newspapers.
The place was still reverberating with it.
Now that's the home of the Jack Kerouac School for Disembodied Poets at the Naropa Institute.
It's great fun. Everybody should always go to Naropa once in their life.
It's a very magical, mystical place out there in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. It's a cool place.
It's a lovely little place.
And there's your picture and your name listed with all of these musicians and poets. And I'm going, well, Marianne Faithfull and
It was a no-show.
You didn't show?
I didn't show.
Oh, no.
I got the horrors, actually. It's the only... I love Alan so much. And I'm afraid we did tease Alan a little bit in my book. There is a definite air of teasing.
Tell the story about how you came to meet Allen Ginsberg. In 1965.
No, it was 64.
Was it?
Really, well, whenever the Dylan...
Yeah, it was a very famous...
It's all nailed on those things that I always forget. It was on I met him in the Savoy Hotel, where I had gone to meet... Bob Dylan. And Alan, we became friends from that moment. And the famous story Alan always tells is that I was his date when we went to the Albert Hall. I was actually at a friend's house, at Hal Wilner's house, I don't know if you know him.
Sure, the producer.
On Friday night, I went over there to see them, Hal and Vicky. I hadn't seen them for a long time, and there was my manuscript. I'd given Hal a copy of Faithfull to read, and when it was still in manuscript, it's the most fantastic thing. There's my manuscript with notes in the margin by Allen Ginsberg, sort of annotated, like, just amazing.
Wow.
It's like the most priceless thing for me.
You mean Ginsberg got a hold of Hal's copy?
Yeah, Hal wouldn't let him take it out of the apartment. It's safe here on Avenue B. But anyway, Alan got so into it that he would come round, because of course he's in it, so naturally he was interested. So he came round and would read it. Hal and Alan just finished a big poetry project of the complete works of Allen Ginsberg on disc.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were working together anyway, so I guess Alan was around a lot. And while he was there, in his sort of off moments, he would, And maybe that's it.
Well, this is it. And
that's the compilation.
This is it. It's a 4-CD set.
Oh.
And that is now Marianne Faithfull's copy of it.
Oh.
That's my gift.
No, Hal didn't give me a copy.
That's my gift to you.
Hasn't given me a copy yet.
It's not out yet, actually. It doesn't come out until this week, as a matter of fact.
Good.
Tuesday's the official release date.
Well, my manuscript, I meant to take it home with me. I'm going to get it.
Yeah, you should.
It's the most incredible treasure. Now has, just like he is, of course, like a professor. So this isn't completely accurate. And all sorts of little notes.
That cranky old crotchety Allen Ginsberg thing. Yeah. Now, see, all right, now this party, though, or this, it was like
it wasn't a party,
but it was
just an audience.
It was a floating thing that was happening, though, in that hotel room, much of which is captured in Penny Baker's film Don't Look Back.
Indeed.
And, I mean, that's the hotel room that we're talking about.
Yes.
Now, your particular scene, or whatever, is not captured on film, but...
Well, I'm in that film, you know.
Yeah, you're in it.
Beautiful blonde girl with my hair all over my face.
Right.
I hated being filmed. I still do.
Sort of always in the corner
never
somewhere.
saying anything, never doing anything.
Well, the women were not allowed to say much or do much, right? Isn't that the case?
Yeah. I really didn't. I was very happy to do that.
But you described Ginsberg as being the most, quote, normal person in the room.
Yes.
Which is a laugh to think of. But you're walking into a room with Dylan and Bobby Newirth and guys from the Animals were hanging out, Alan Price and all those people.
Yeah.
And
but, you know, it's not surprising, really, because my father was a university lecturer. And my father's a professor of Italian and Renaissance studies. So I would be able to relate to Alan, because he is very, in whatever anybody, I don't know how, I think of Alan as incredibly sane myself. And I went to Naropa at Alan's invitation, and while I was there, I mean, it's all been so wonderful, my whole friendship with Alan. Philip Whalen taught me to meditate when I was at my first visit to Naropa. And I've been back lots of times since. Alan is always there, you know, where it's happening at the time. That's how he is.
Well, now, the interesting thing, and I love the way this all kind of ties together, you met him in this hotel room, and it was 1965,
and he had seen him before in Paris.
Okay.
No, of course I hadn't. I wasn't even married yet. That was on my own. See, it's no good asking me these questions. Yes, right. You're right. I'm sorry. It was the first time I met Alan.
He had just come back from Prague, where he had been crowned.
Well, actually, he was crowned Queen of the May.
Queen of the May. But
I don't know why we didn't say that in the book.
It became King of the May in the poem. And I thought if you don't mind, we could play Ginsberg reading that poem, because this is the exact, and this is a recording that was made in London at a bookstore, probably right around the time that you met him.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, yes, Miles is. Well, I would have met Alan one way or another, even if I hadn't gone round to the store.
Allen Ginsberg.
Carl Mayales.
Allen Ginsberg, recorded in 1965, right around the time he met my guest tonight, Marianne Faithfull. How amazed and shocked we all were when we heard Broken English, because we remembered...
Very natural change, you know.
That's a lot of cigarettes, Marianne.
I don't... Well, maybe. I mean, I can't say it's not. Of course, it must be connected to whiskey and cigarettes and all the other stuff. But I still really do think that my voice was always going to become like that. I wasn't... Even when I was very young, when I was studying classical music and had a beautiful soprano voice, and they knew even then that my voice would become mezzo.
Really, that it would change, huh? Was that, is your mother's voice a deeper, huskier voice?
Yes, my mother's voice was very low, but she couldn't sing at all. She was a dancer.
Marianne Faithfull is my guest here on Idiot's Delight. We have to pause here for some commercial messages. This is WXRK, New York. It's 92.3 K-Rock. I'm Vin Scelsa, and I am tickled and delighted to have Marianne Faithfull as my guest this evening. She has a book, an autobiography, which has just come out. It is entitled Faithfull. And there's also, in conjunction with the release of the autobiography, a release called Faithfull, a CD release, which has Somehow I can't call this a greatest hits. I mean, it's a nice retrospective of the latter part of your career, not the 60s stuff for the most part, but starting with Broken English. And it's got your incredible version of John Lennon's Working Class Hero and the Ballad of Lucy Jordan. And a couple of things that have not been released up until now, which I want to get to one of those in just a minute. So this is out as well, and the title of both of these, the book and the CD, the title is Faithfull. Okay. Now, do you know about Dial-A-Mattress, Marianne Faithfull? Now you live in where do you live in Ireland now?
Well, I live half in Ireland and half in New York.
Okay. Well, see, now, if you live half in New York, you should know about Dial-A-Mattress, because Dial-A-Mattress, it's an institution in New York.
Really?
Yes. This is a commercial now that we're doing. Dial-A-Mattress is a service that you can reach by calling an 800 number, right? And you can buy beds from them.
Over the phone?
Over the phone. Mattresses, futons, all sorts of sleeping things, and you get these beds and mattresses at real reasonable prices, because they don't have showrooms, so they don't have all this overhead and stuff.
But how do you know that you're getting a decent mattress?
Because everybody knows.
What would happen?
That it's Dial-A-Mattress. No, it's Sealy Posturepedic. Oh yes, they've got an incredible reputation. And as a matter of fact, Commissioner Mark Green's Consumer Alert gives them a very high rating.
That's how you check. You have to.
And I have the bed that I sleep on, that my wife and I sleep on, we purchased through Dial-A-Mattress.
And it's good,
It's wonderful, nice, firm. It's not a king size, it's a queen size. One of these days I'm going to get a king size. You know what they have now? They actually have, Marianne Faithfull, they have what are called folding kings now.
What's that?
Folding kings and collapsible queens or something like that. I don't know. It's weird. And you being an English woman, you would appreciate this, I think, folding kings and collapsible
queens.
Of
wonderful chess game.
Yeah, you know. Well, see, it's hard, for some people, it's hard to get a king-size mattress into their apartment or their room because they're so big, right? Yes. So they've actually invented now something that folds both the box spring and the mattress, so they get. And Dial-A-Mattress is the place to go for folding kings and queens.
Now, I need a mattress.
Now, if ever you need a mattress,
I'll do that.
No matter where you are in America, because they deliver anywhere.
Yes.
They deliver 24 hours a day. So you being, I would think now, since the Vatican actually labeled you a witch, I would imagine you're up late at night. You're a late night kind of person.
Yes.
Right? So if you wanted your mattress delivered to you at 2 o'clock in the morning,
they could do that.
They could do that. They would deliver to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. Wherever you are, anywhere in America, New York, Chicago, Boston, L.A., Florida, Baltimore. It's cool. What's your favorite place in America?
Well, New York, of course.
Yeah.
And then I'm very partial to San Francisco.
They would deliver to San Francisco.
I like Texas, too.
Texas is nice.
Yes,
How about New Orleans?
I like New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans is cool.
Very much.
Okay.
I played there.
1-800. Where did you play?
Tips.
Tips. Oh, cool. Did you bow to the Professor Longhair bust at the? Oh, you guys see, performers don't see the bust. Because performers don't come through the front door of Tipitina's. Performers go through the back door, the stage door. There is an incredible bust of Professor Longhair right at the front door, right as you go in, right by the front bar. And people literally bow to it and put drinks on the pedestal that the bust is on, and they give him cigarettes and stuff. You know,
well, I know about Professor Longhair, but no.
When did you play Tips? At what point?
Several times.
Yeah?
I played there on my last tour in 1990.
Okay.
And I played there the first time in the 80s, early 80s. I can't remember when.
The Broken English period, maybe, then, huh?
It was after that.
Okay.
It was just after.
Let me finish this commercial by saying you can reach Dial-A-Mattress at 1-800-MATTRES, which almost spells mattress. You leave off the last S because that's the S for savings, you see? So you don't even have to remember a number. You just call 1-800-MATTRESS.
That is so cool.
And you leave off the last S for savings. Now, and I know Marianne Faithfull will appreciate this. If you call an order between the hours of 10 p.m. and midnight, if you call and actually place an order with Dial-A-Mattress, they will give you a gift. A beautiful set, it says here, of freshwater pearls, including a necklace, a bracelet, and earrings with a retail value of $50. So there you go. You get a bed and you get the pearls. It's like...
Yes, pearls are great, aren't they?
Baubles, bangles, and beads.
And everything else that goes with it.
Now, Marianne Faithfull, how many times a day do you stop and like, pinch yourself and go, man,
I'm
it's
lucky
amazing
to be
that
alive.
I'm alive. Yeah.
All the time, I think. And I don't think about it all the time, but it does heighten my awareness of the wonder and beauty of life, I must say.
Because your story is just full of all kinds of scary stuff. I mean, you were a stoned out street junkie for many years. I mean, you talk in the book about reading William Burroughs for the first time and deciding that's at some point in your life you wanted to be that. And you didn't want to be, like when we think of rock and roll junkies, when we think of Keith and Keith's battle with heroin addiction over the years, we think of a very sort of aristocratic,
it's very deluxe,
removed from the common ordinary street scene, you know? But you were a street scene junkie. You lived on a wall for a while.
Yes. I don't know why. I obviously wanted something that and it was more than drugs. It was, I wanted some sort of experience that tallied with my reading of The Naked Lunch. It's such an amazing thing to admit, really, that now that you would go out and do that because you read a book. But and there must have been other things involved, I'm sure. You know, I must be an addictive personality and all that stuff. But what I got in that 2 years when I lived on my wall was something I hadn't had really before, which was complete anonymity and complete acceptance for who I was at that moment, with no strings. You know, those people were very good to me. They were very kind to me, and they looked after me, and I wasn't able to look after myself with that.
When you say you lived on a wall, what does that actually mean?
It just means that I lived on a wall.
Literally, you lived...
I don't know if it's...
Were you a squatter?
I was also a
that's
squatter.
what I get.
I was in a lot of things. I was a junkie, a street person. When I needed to sleep inside, I would go to a squat. But usually I just stayed on the wall. It was called St. Anne's Court, and it was in Soho.
In London?
In London.
Soho
in London, yes. And it was obviously that was a bombed-out building from the World War II thing. I don't know why I chose that wall or that place.
Now, where were all these people from your past?
Everybody says that.
You know, where...
Well, they didn't know where... I didn't know where they were.
You disappeared from their lives, right?
I didn't want anybody to come and look for me. You know, I don't tell that story about my wall as a sort of... as an accusation to anybody. I was there because, honestly, I thought that's what I wanted to do at the time. And it sort of healed me in a way. It was a very, not that I recommend it, actually, but for the sort of, the burnout I was going through, that wall, that situation was very good. Although, I mean, it's amazing to me now. Of course, I certainly couldn't do that, even think of doing it. I don't know how.
Now you were addicted to heroin for, as I read the book, almost 20 years. I mean, it was a
No, not continually.
Throughout most of the 70s and a good part of the 80s,
not all the time, no.
You kicked it from time to time.
Oh, yes, I wouldn't be alive if I was, and I certainly wouldn't be like I am. No. No, I had long times where I didn't use heroin and didn't use them much at all, but it would always come back. You know.
How did you support yourself? How did you live during like the wall periods and the squatting periods? Was there still money coming in from the recordings?
No, of course not. Anyway, there was so little. I mean, in the 60s, in the early 60s, the amount of, I mean, you got nothing for these things. It was very, very unlikely that I made much money at all, and I didn't. I made money more from my performances, but by the time I was on the wall, I wasn't performing. Obviously, I was very, very sick. No, I was in the National Health Program at the time, which was free.
Yeah. And you got heroin from the National Health Program.
But I got a prescription.
God.
It's not like that now. Before every junkie in New York gets on the next flight to London.
Yeah, no, of course not.
It's not. It's changed.
You just got to New York, and there's something going on in town now. There's a killer strain of heroin out there.
I always read those things.
You must still relate to that on some level.
Well, I don't directly. I mean, except that I'm glad it's not me, and I'm glad I'm not using.
What was?
I found myself reading it, so I must. Sort of,
what turned it around for you? There were 2 suicide attempts that you talked about in the book.
Well,
one in Australia, when Jagger was out making that film.
Ned
Kelly.
Yeah, that didn't do it for me yet. It took more than that.
You took a lot of sleeping pills on that one, right?
Yes. One of the things that helped me, and it helps many a junkie, I think, if you're going to be able to be helped, is when you see your friends die. That's one of the things that will sober you up quicker than almost anything. I think that's one of the things that helped me. They do say that, that no junkie dies in vain. And I think it's a very interesting point.
I mean, you had a man that you were living with who literally committed suicide, went out a window.
That's really, I think, what sobered me up. That was when I realized, finally, that this was really very serious.
Yeah. And this was in the mid-'80s sometime when that happened.
1986.
Yeah. You were living in New York at the time?
No, I was in Boston.
Boston, right.
I went to treatment in 1985, and so that was when I really got help.
You had OD'd on heroin, and there was a point that is described in the book where after you had injected it, you immediately sort of recognized what you had done and you rebelled against it.
Well, I don't really know. I mean, that's what I had this experience where I don't know what it was, but I do have a very intense sort of dream life, so I don't know whether, I really don't know, but what I did was take this huge overdose, and my heart stopped. And in fact, I fell, but I didn't know this at this moment, and broke my jaw. And then I had this experience of something asking me, "Do you really want to die?" And I realized I didn't, and I said, "No, I don't." And then I said, "Help me." And the next minute, my heart was going again, a bit shakily, but going. And 3 weeks later, I got into treatment and I got help.
Through people at the record company, at Island Records, through Chris Blackwell. I mean, the story that you tell in the book is
It's like a blueprint of how to behave with artists who have got drug problems.
A woman from the record company came to visit you. She was looking for something in the apartment.
Looking for a pen.
Right. She's opening drawers.
She opened the drawer, and in all the drawers, it was like a little coded message. It works in one drawer, coke in another, smack in another, and a thing to tie me up with in the other. Heavy. It was very heavy.
And she said, "I'll be right back."
She didn't say anything. That was what. I mean, she just went back to the office and obviously called Blackwell and called the people you had to call.
And then what happened? Did they come to you and say, "Look, you got to get straight," or what? I mean, how did you wind up? Then you were in
It was very, very. I mean, I was very lucky because I wouldn't have. I was desperate for help, and I couldn't go on like I was, and I knew it. But I wouldn't have been able to. I don't think I would have gone to anybody and said, "You must get me into treatment or I'm going to die." I wouldn't have been able to do that. I didn't understand that at all. That you have to actually consciously ask for help. I couldn't have done it. But they just did it. Somebody called me from London, Tom Hayes. He's still a friend of mine, and I think he worked for Ireland in the accountancy bit. And he had a big drinking problem, and he'd been to Hazelden. And Tom called me and said, it was extremely cool. He said, "What do you want to do now?" And nothing had been discussed. And I remember saying, Well, I'd really like to go to a health farm for a few weeks or something like one of those things, you know. I do need a bit of a break, it's true. I'll go to a health farm. What about, you know, Canyon Ranch? And I remember Tom said, I think it's a bit more serious than that. And at that moment, I just sort of crumbled and said, yes, it is. And he said, well, we got you into this place. It's very good.
Hazleton?
Yes.
It's in the Midwest here in the
It's
States.
in Minneapolis, yes.
And you were there for
I was
months,
there for a long
right?
time, yes. Hardcore. And I went. But I got myself on the plane, and I got myself to the airport, and I got on the plane, and I got there. And once I got to Minneapolis, they picked me up and took me out.
Never once in reading your book do I hear you say during all of this, but I'm Marianne Faithfull. You know? I mean,
I very rarely feel like that.
yeah, you know, I mean, you never seem to acknowledge that. You never seem to either regret or you know,
But I am Marianne Faithfull.
yeah, you know, I mean,
It's so normal. I mean, I always think, it doesn't need to be said. I know I'm Marianne Faithfull. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter who you think I am,
Right.
as long as I know.
Right.
That's all that matters.
having survived 2 suicide attempts, and there's
I'm very lucky.
There's a story now. Can I just tell this
Yes,
story in the
yeah.
book? The first time when you took a lot of sleeping pills, and you're in Australia, and you're living with Jagger, you're having a relationship with Jagger at that point. Was that before or after the miscarriage?
That was after.
After the miscarriage, you were pregnant with a child by Mick. You had already a son by your first husband, who was basically living with your mother for.
Well, my son wasn't living with my mother at that time. Nicholas was living with Mick and I.
Okay.
It was only after Australia and after I split up with Mick and lost his protection, really, I suppose, is the thing, that Nicholas was taken away from me. But until he was 7, he lived with me.
Okay. Now you're out. You're in
Which actually makes the thing about the suicide attempt in Australia even more shocking.
Yeah.
I have to say, yeah.
So you're out in a coma, pretty much.
I was out for 6 days.
For 6 days, and when you wake up, Jagger is in the room, and he says something.
I have to say my mum was there too.
Okay, and he says something like, "Oh, you know, we thought we'd lost you." And did you really say to him, "Wild horses couldn't drag me away"?
Yeah.
God. Oh man.
I did.
Now this, of course, is several years before he writes a song called
No,
Wild
he wrote
Horses.
it pretty soon after that.
It was a while before he recorded it, though, I guess.
But
But that's amazing.
I think when by the time we got back to London, which must have been 6 months later, he had that song and he played it.
God.
I was delighted. I mean, it's all I really wanted at that time was to have some of my thoughts and ideas turned into art. You know, it was wonderful.
Sister Morphine was a song
I wrote,
that
yes.
you wrote,
Yeah.
and then never got credit for, although you did.
Well, I have got it now.
Yeah.
I got the money. Just after the war, actually, the time I was living there. When I got really sick of living on the wall, and I really needed some money, and I rang up Ballad and said, "Look, I must have some money now because Sticky Fingers has come out and it's a big hit, and where's my money?" And that was when I found out that I didn't have a credit.
Why didn't they?
But I did get the money.
Why didn't they give you credit?
Oh, I don't know.
You
It's not
wrote the
good
words
form,
to
yeah.
Sister Morphine.
Yes, I did, but, you know, the Rolling Stones don't share their writing credits with anybody. I don't think anyone else has ever got a credit. Although many people have helped with the songs, it's just not the way they are, you know. Although I was determined to get my credit and all my money, and I did. But my case was different. I mean, it wasn't just the fact, I wasn't just in the room at the time or something. I actually sat down and wrote those lyrics all myself. But, you know, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of things like that happen when people split up and when they're upset with each other. And, you know, I lost the cat, too.
So you wake up from a 6-day coma, and Mick Jagger's sitting there in his Ned Kelly costume or something like that, and he says, "Marianne, we almost lost you," and you looked up at him and said, "Wild horses wouldn't drag me away from you."
Well, it was a moment of pure love, yes. And I love the song.
Marianne Faithfull, what happens when you hear that or one of the many other songs that you were party to, that were maybe written for you or about you, when you're just like walking through a supermarket or something and the song comes on the radio? I mean, what happens? These are songs that are such a part of our pop culture, that to find out that the reason why that song was written was because, you know, he was responding to what you said when you came out of a coma after having tried to commit suicide.
That is how songs get written.
Yes, but we don't even think of that anymore with the Rolling Stones, you know?
Well, I'm sure they're still writing about their lives as they are now.
Of course.
I don't know. I always think it's just I happen to be there, that's all. That sort of thing. But Wild Horses is a special one, and I'm always moved when I hear it.
You can't always get what you want.
I'm always moved when I hear that.
Yeah, that was one that was written for you or about you.
Very clear. Yeah. There's many characters in that song, and I'm one of them.
Now, people shouldn't get the impression that this book, this autobiography of yours, is all dark and down and full of great inner turmoil and depression and stuff like that. There's some wonderful, marvelous stories, and fully half the book, if not even more than half the book, is about that period in the '60s.
Yeah.
That swinging mod London period in the '60s.
That was our directive, you see. So that's really what they wanted. So that's what we did. And in a way, it was very useful for me, that, because I had to really write about the stuff that people know about anyway, which is my involvement with Mick Jagger and the '60s and my drug addiction. And then my work coming out of that, like Broken English and all my work up to now. There's an awful lot of my life I haven't had to go into because nobody knows about it, nobody cares, which is nice. So it stays to be mine.
Some things you have to keep private, right?
Yes.
There's a very funny scene in the book that revolves around one of the first times, if not the first time, you and Jagger were finally alone together and were about to consummate this flirtation, this thing that had been going on. Yeah. You know the story I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, about the Holy Grail.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is funny.
Can you tell the story?
It's very funny. Oh, gosh. I can't remember it now, of course. When I went down to Bristol, I'd been invited by Keith and Brian, who were great friends of mine, and I went down to see them. I don't think I'd seen them before. And it was very, very fascinating, and I was sort of completely fascinated. And that night, we all went back to some motel somewhere in Bristol, and watched Repulsion. I remember that.
Oh.
And smoked a lot of grass.
Roman Polanski
and all that stuff. And it was a great night, and it went on and on and on, like these nights always do. And in the end, I found myself alone with Mick. And I didn't quite know what to do. I'm never very good at this moment. So we went for a walk. In the morning, the sun was rising and the dew and all that stuff. And on that walk, we had this conversation about
you began testing him.
Well, yes, that's what I think so. Yes, and he passed.
You were asking him all these questions
about the Holy Grail and King Arthur and
mythology,
Lancelot du Lac and all that stuff.
Because you wanted to know that he was.
I don't know. I didn't realize it at the time, but of course, when I came to tell David all these stories, that was very fascinating. About telling someone else and seeing how he saw it. You know,
Yeah.
That was very odd, because I had a lot of these things I'd never really talked about.
But at some point, Mick turns to you and says, "Marianne, did I pass the test?"
Yeah.
You know? Then there's another scene where you guys are about to have some wonderful romantic moment, and some band comes barging in.
That's so funny. Yes, the small face with all their amps and guitars. But I mean, you know, that's how musicians are. We all know that.
They just knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we want to jam."
All right, if we have a jam.
No, excuse me, please.
Oh, no,
we're having
much too polite.
a private moment
we were
here.
much too polite to say that.
Now, because people know of your drug problems, your drug addiction and stuff, people have always assumed that Sister Morphine is you. Sister Morphine, even though you wrote the words to it, Sister Morphine is somebody else. What's the story behind Sister Morphine?
I think I wrote Sister Morphine for Anita. Well, though neither Anita or
Anita Pallenberg, who was
one of my dearest friends.
Keith
still is one of my dearest friends.
Keith's consort. She was also consort. Is that a good word? Can we use that? Girlfriend. Girlfriend is not the right.
I really think of her as. I suppose this is terrible to say this, but I think of her as his wife. Really.
But she had been with Brian before that. But Keith always kind of, according to your book, was always in love with her.
Well, I don't know. You know, these are all speculation, but I think so. Yes. And Anita was amazing and still is. I think I wrote it for her, really. But none of us were using hard drugs at the time I wrote Sister Morphine, and it's true that in a way it was something that was to come.
Wasn't there something too about a story about somebody who was injured or something in a car crash?
Well, that was my external story. I mean, all my songs have always got what I think they're about, what they're really about,
right,
and what underneath all those things I think they are actually about. And of course it's many, many levels. But my actual sort of little scenario for Sister Morphine was in fact a man who's had a car crash, who's in hospital and is in great pain and needs a shot of morphine. But I do think that I wrote it really for Anita.
And that's Marianne Faithfull's version of Sister Morphine, which finally appeared on the Greatest Hits album that came out on CD. But until it appeared on that Greatest Hits album, it sort of floated around, that version of the song.
Yes.
And,
I wrote it 2 years at least, or 3 years before Sticky Fingers, before the Rolling Stones recorded it. I must have been very ahead of its time. And it's still quite a shock, that song, because it's so sort of graphic.
You say that Ry Cooder's playing on that track?
Yes, that's right.
Who was playing the keyboard, do you recall?
That's Jack Nietzsche.
It's Jack Nietzsche who produced it?
Yeah. Well, Mick produced it, but Jack...
Mick produced it?
Yeah. And the drums is Charlie.
Now listen, I found the scene in the book. Mick as Shiva.
Oh, yes.
Now, let me just pause here for some commercials. And is it all right with you? Can I read something from the book?
Yes,
okay.
If you were...
All right, now let's listen to this scene from Marianne Faithfull's autobiography. Now, are you in fact the first living person that David Dalton has worked with?
Yes, I have that dubious honor.
Because he wrote a book about...
I am in fact the first living subject that Dalton has...
Because he wrote about Joplin, he wrote about Morrison.
Piece of My Heart is the Joplin one.
He wrote about, he did one of the early biographies of James Dean.
Yes.
And then he did...
and the one about Jim Morrison.
Mr. Mojo Rising.
Yes. I like the Janis one very much.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I chose David to be my co-writer. My ghost, as I call him.
Okay. Now listen to this. During our first few months in Harley House, which was where you and Mick were living, Mick and I spent a lot of time alone. It's where we got to know each other. Mick played me records, The Miracles, Slim Harpo, Robert Johnson, and I introduced him to books. It was one of the best bits of our life. But even at Harley House, it wasn't easy to be alone with Mick because he was so magnetic and everybody wanted to be around him. After Harley House, our privacy was hard to hold on to. As we moved to the house in Chester Square and later to is that how that's called? Cheney Walk, there was a constant parade of visitors, people dropping by at all hours of the day and night, dinner parties.
Our drugs in those early days consisted mostly of grass, acid, and the occasional leaper. Leaper being like an upper speed. Okay, and you make a point about Mick was never like a real hard drug person, was he?
No.
You know, Keith was like a serious junkie, but Mick never got into that, huh?
Maybe because he's so athletic too. Mind you, what am I saying? All these athletes on drugs now. But
yeah, right.
I always think that's a way where if you have any vague idea of how complicated the body is and what you can get out of it, I would have thought that would stop you from being completely self-destructive.
Marianne Faithfull, isn't part of what attracted you to Mick was that of all of the people in that scene and in the Stones, he was the one who seemed most rooted, most down to earth, most...
He was the most together, yeah.
I mean, because people have always said, oh, Mick's the businessman. Mick's,
well, I know that's true, but of course I didn't. That's not what I saw.
Yeah. But
he was very, very kind and very beautiful. And clever, obviously. Clever as anything. I'll always like clever people.
Does he... People have always said, oh, the Rolling Stones, you know, the misogynist band of all time. Does he hate women? I mean, he can't...
I don't know. I mean, it's obviously in writing this book, I had to really sort of touch on that subject, on the misogyny of rock and roll, or it would have been terrible. It would have been a big hole in the book. But I don't know if I can really say. I mean, the thing about hating women is it's always, you have to go at it from both sides. Somebody who is frightened and seemingly has hatred towards women also has incredible love towards women. It all goes together. I mean, Mick obviously loves women, but women can be a lot of trouble.
There was a period there where you were just sort of one of the boys, too,
I thought so,
right?
yes.
You were part of this boys' club.
Yeah.
All right, let me get back to this. We're in Cheney Walkers, someplace like that, right? No hard drugs around.
No, no.
That was one of the nice things about Mick. He really wasn't into drugs. He was very straight always. A little acid, a little grass. I'd probably be dead by now if I'd been involved with if I'd been involved with somebody like me.
Yeah.
You're saying. Mick just liked a bit of smoke and an occasional drink. He was a terrible drunk. We did acid mostly because I was always egging him on. We have to do some of this stuff, Mick. Come on, let's get Keith and Brian and Anita to come over and all drop acid.
Oh, can you imagine? Yes, I was just like that in the 60s.
Mick and I hadn't been in Harley House very long before we decided to take a trip together. And so one afternoon, as one did in those days, we made preparations. We got out the Ravi Shankar records, Blonde on Blonde, Otis Redding, all the sonic spirits that would accompany us. We took the phone off the hook and dressed for the occasion. Just as the acid was coming on, I remember Mick going over to the gramophone, carrying one of those green, transparent plastic records that the Indian ragas came on. He sat down very ceremoniously in the middle of the floor. It was Ali Akbar Khan, flute and tabla, and as the flute began to quaver, Mick rose up, his whole body twisting in a corkscrew like a cobra coming out of its basket. And then he started to dance. It was a specific sort of dance, an Indian dance, the dance brightly painted men and women do in Bengali movies, very different from the lascivious dance he does in performance. This was pure beauty and exaltation, a great dance and dancer, another being. And as Mick danced, an extraordinary change came over him. It was as if he were unwinding himself like a mummy, shedding layers of wrapping, revealing at the core of this suburban English boy's body a many-armed, blue-headed dancing god, the macrocosmic Mick.
Brilliant.
I was seeing Mick, the brain bell jongleur, the real Mick, if there is such a thing. The dance was very, very fast, practically on one spot. He was starting to vibrate so quickly that his body was breaking up into molecules. Now, you know that David Dalton has taken a lot of acid as well.
Yes.
To be able to write these visions this way.
Yes, but this is very much how I told him.
Shimmering, phosphorescent particles. I was completely transfixed, hardly breathing. As he moved, his hands in stroboscopic flutters, they multiplied and fanned out, overlapping each other. The formality was incredible. He had become Shiva, I hadn't realized until then that I was living with somebody who at odd moments could turn into a god. It was a blissful, ecstatic moment suspended in time. We could have gone on all night. We hadn't even got to the part where we were going to make love. And F me if the bell doesn't ring and in walk all the small faces with their gear, amps, and guitars and mic stands. At the high point of our trip, they'd drop by the jam, man.
Yep.
That daft boys game of all we want to do is rock and roll. God. And we were too polite and high to kick them out. It was one of those awful moments of polarization, the mundane world bursting in, the gentleman from Porlock.
I love the gentleman from Porlock, yes. It's brilliant.
That is such a great scene.
It's very good, yes. I mean, it's very much exactly how I told him, but of course he's worked it very beautifully.
You have, I mean, there are vivid memories that you have of those acid
Could I ever forget
trips.
a scene like that? I mean, obviously. And the most amazing thing was just in June, I went I was here in New York and I went to the museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, to see the big Asian exhibition. It was a wonderful exhibition. And I'm a member, you know, and off I went with my little card. I went a lot of times, and what I found there was a sort of, I think it was a 5th century bronze of Shiva, and it was exactly like that.
Yeah.
It was exactly,
yeah.
and
With
it's there. It's right there
the
with
arms,
all the arms.
Right.
It's the most beautiful thing, and it's exactly that's what I saw, and I saw it. To actually see it as a bronze in front of you is so amazing.
And then these guys show up and want to party.
Well,
play rock and roll.
I mean, they can't help that. You know that they are like that. All musicians are like that. That's all they really want to do is just cart their amps about and set them up everywhere and just play all the time. And I understand that. I mean, sort of, yeah.
You frequently describe in the book Nick and Keith just walking around places with guitars, just all the time coming up with melodies.
Really, why
and
I
stuff.
was able. I mean, that's why I wrote Sister Morphine, because I got tired of it actually hearing that riff all the time, and I waited for ages. You know, about 6 months went by where nothing happened. He didn't write it.
Whose riff was it? Keith's
It was
or Mick's?
Mick's.
It was Mick's.
No, it was all very separate, really. But it was Mick's riff, and it was beautiful. But I got tired of it, and I wanted him to move on. So I realized that someone would have to do it, and I wrote the words.
Now, in addition to writing songs and working with Barry Reynolds, who has been a songwriting
He's just the
partner
same.
of yours.
Barry Reynolds, you just give him an amp and a guitar, and he'll just go off. Just like they're all like that musicians, you know.
You are, of course, also a wonderful interpreter of songs and have become a prime person to do, for instance, the music of Kurt Weill. I mean, you were part
That's
of Hal
how I met
Wilner's
Hal.
Lost in the Stars collection.
That was the first time I met Hal.
And the very Kurt Weill-ish stuff that Tom Waits does. There's that Strange Weather song. It's just a great Tom Waits song. And your voice is so well suited to that, too. And you've done Three Penny Opera. You performed.
Yes, I did. I played Pirate Jenny 3 years ago now in Dublin at the Gate Theatre.
Perfect. I mean, it's a perfect marriage of role and actress.
It was wonderful.
There is a new album that's just come out that has on it the perfect marriage of song and song interpreter. And I'm talking about an album of Van Morrison songs called No Prima Donna that has just been released. And on it there is a Marianne Faithfull version of Madame George. And when I looked at that, I said, oh, God, of course.
Well,
I mean,
and that's how Van saw it,
It's
too.
it's perfect. Marianne Faithfull and Madame George belong together.
And Van Morrison filtered through Kurt Weill.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows all that.
Now, Van was in the studio for this, right?
Van
Didn't he produced it? Yeah. So he came to you and asked you to do it?
Well, not exactly. No, Van doesn't go to anybody. I don't know how this happened. I think it was probably his manager called my manager, one of those things.
Right.
But I'm friends with Van, and I've known him for a long, long time, and he's just wonderful. And I said I would do it, but only if he produced it.
You do agree with me.
Be there.
You do agree that it is the perfect marriage, isn't
I
it?
think it probably is,
Yeah.
yes.
Let's
It
listen.
turned out very, very well, anyway. We were very pleased.
It was the first track that I played when I got the CD, and I just got this big smile on my face. You know,
And
it's
that was
gorgeous.
little Shana, Miss Morrison, Van's daughter.
Van's daughter?
Yes,
Ah.
singing backups. She's lovely.
Wow. That's Marianne Faithfull from No Prima Donna, the songs of Van Morrison. That also includes a gorgeous reading of Coney Island by Liam Neeson. And
very.
Sinead O'Connor's on the album. And Elvis doing full force Gale a cappella.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
It is.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Marianne Faithfull is my guest here on Idiot's Delight. This is 92.3 K-Rock. We are here tonight with the mad woman of... There's a quote somewhere about you as
The Mad Woman of Chaillot.
yeah, sort of. You know, I mean, you became a kind of a strange,
Wraith-like creature.
ephemeral creature there
Oh,
for so
I know,
many years.
it's very sad.
I mean, but you are so down to earth and so rooted now. I mean, you just seem so. God forbid I should use this word normal. I mean, you know, you're just such a friendly, giving person at this point.
I think
was it?
I'm very lucky, and I did get a lot of help. You see, I had a very good shrink, and the other thing that really helped me was acupuncture. And I have a feeling they really did something that sort of, I would think of it like sort of changing the wiring some way.
Wow.
And I still do that.
Do you fear at all
Yeah.
slipping back?
I do fear. I don't want to slip back. I really, I mean, you can never say, that's that, I'll never do that again, because it's such an insidious drug and such a strange sort of form of social, I don't know what, you know, it's a very odd business, that.
Marianne, do you have a support system now?
Oh, well, I was just going to get, yes, I mean, I first of all, I have a really good team working with me, and of course my life isn't just work. I have more friends than I ever had. I really do. And I have more of a sense of myself in relationship to others, which I didn't have when I was little or young.
Yeah.
I really saw myself alone.
You have a grandchild now.
I
don't you?
do. Oscar. Our Oscar. Yes.
This is Nicholas's son.
Nicholas's first son.
How old is he?
He was 1 on the 12th of July.
Oh God!
So
That's cool.
he's walking now.
Does Nicholas live in America?
Nicholas, no, he's in London with Carol. They just got married, actually.
He's involved in film somehow?
Yes, he's in film. He's coming to New York quite soon, actually. He's going down with Hal Wilner is going to record The Naked Lunch on a audio book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And my Nicholas is going down with Hal to Lawrence to film it.
Burroughs is going to do it himself.
Yes, William's going to read it himself.
Yeah, nobody reads Burroughs like Burroughs. And get that nasal, that incredible voice of his, that deadpan voice of his, you know. Yeah.
But William has never wanted to read a Naked Lunch, so it's quite a big thing. It's very exciting.
Now, Wilner will do some incidental music for it as well?
Yes, I believe he will, yes.
Now, the infamous Steve Leeds is here with Marianne Faithfull. Steve, can you tell us where Marianne's going to be? She's going to be doing a book signing. Come here, come to the microphone, Steve. Don't be shy. And no, not that one. This one. This one over here. Yeah.
Oh.
Where's the book signing going to be?
Wednesday evening at Rizzoli's down in Soho.
Downtown?
Yep.
The famous Steve Leeds.
Yeah.
When was the last time Howard Stern gave out your phone number? It's been a while, huh?
It's been a long time.
All right, Rizzoli's down on, what is that?
West Broadway.
West Broadway. Wednesday night. What time?
Around dinner time, around 6-ish.
6, okay. And she'll be signing copies of the book?
Books, CDs.
Okay, great. The book, of course, is called Faithfull, an autobiography, Marianne Faithfull, written with David Dalton. The album, which has Strange Weather and Broken English and the Ballad of Lucy Jordan, is also called Faithfull, and the two have been released sort of in conjunction with each other. You know what? I was amazed to find out, because I never really looked at the credits before. There's a song of yours that I've never played on the radio because I never wanted to censor it. And that's the song, Why Do You Do It?
Why'd you do it?
Why'd you do it, right?
Yeah.
I never wanted to. I tried, I tried putting I know a lot of radio stations did. They censored out all the naughty bits, you know? But it didn't, to me it was like almost sacrilegious. The song was so valid the way it was that it didn't make sense to me to try and,
I know.
you know?
It was funny for me, though, when I first came to New York on the back of that. I remember going around radios and things. It must have been 78 or early 79. And everywhere I went, I heard "Why'd you do it?" all with the words bleeped out. It was very peculiar.
Now this is a song, this is an angry song about a woman who was full of rage and jealousy over the fact that her man has gone off and slept with another woman, and it's very graphic.
About sexual jealousy.
Yeah.
It's probably the most archetypal thing about sexual jealousy ever.
One of the things that I found so revealing and shocking reading your book is that it was written by a man. It was a poem written by a man.
Yes, a great poet, actually. Escott Williams. Yeah.
Because everybody who ever heard that song assumed it was your song, you know, and assumed...
Well, it is my song, but I didn't write it.
Isn't that amazing?
I wish I had. I would give anything to have written that. But then there's a lot of songs I wish I'd written.
And he captured that female rage perfectly, didn't he?
Well, of course, it's in reality. If you read it now, you'd see it was a dialogue, which is also very interesting.
Yeah.
There are two parts.
There are two voices there.
His voice and her voice, and they're having a dialogue. Yeah. But you also don't necessarily get that from it.
We have a recording of Allen Ginsberg. It's on Cart back in the office. You know the bleep song. Before you go, because we did something with Allen once, where we took a recording, a song that I don't know. I think it was a song, like a bluesy thing, that he did a couple of years ago on one of his albums.
I must have heard it.
It's a real graphic song, full of all sorts of body parts and stuff, you know, and slang expressions for body parts. And so we bleeped all that out. It's called Come On Jack, I think, or something like that.
I've heard it, yeah.
And then we decided to bleep out lots of other things as well. So we just bleeped out random words. We bleeped out guitar notes from a guitar solo. In other words, the power of suggestion would then cause the listener to put in all sorts of words that weren't really there.
That's how you get everyone to participate.
Right. Now, before you leave tonight, I want you to hear that.
Yeah.
But I also want to play Ghost Dance.
I'd love that. Yes,
Patti Smith, Lenny Kaye's song.
Yes.
That is on the new CD. This has never been released before.
No, we only recorded it 4 months ago in Dublin. It's for we did it for an AIDS project in Ireland that I'm working on to try and get people with HIV who are HIV positive in Ireland. Some of the services that we have here in New York, like somebody to come and clean your house and do the shopping, and the sort of things you can't do when you're sick. So this is something towards that. But it turned out so well that we put it on the compilation.
And you work with Keith on this.
Keith is playing on it. It's Keith on lead guitar, Ronnie Wood on acoustic, and Charlie Watts, of course, wonderful. And Don Was is playing bass.
Oh, the ubiquitous Don Was.
The wondrous, the fab.
Patti Smith's Ghost Dance. And this is such a perfect song, again, for you to be doing this whole, you know, we shall live again notion. I mean, because you've been through those downs and you've survived and come out the other end.
Not through anything I did right, but I've been very lucky, and I have managed to get through to here, yes. Thanks.
Marianne Faithfull. Let's listen to this.
I'm dying to, I won't forget.
From the new CD compilation called Faithfull, simply Faithfull, there is a previously unreleased recording of Marianne Faithfull's. It's Patti Smith and Lenny Kaye's Ghost Dance.
Yeah.
And again, a perfect song for you, for your voice. But you can hear on these newer recordings now, you can hear that your voice has changed a little bit again. It's not quite as deep, especially on the Van Morrison song, the Madame George. It gets up a little higher.
Sweeter. I mean, I don't know.
But maybe it's because
I must have changed.
You know, I mean, maybe
because I'm less angry, probably.
not only that, but I mean, you don't have those drugs in your system anymore.
No, I don't.
You know, I mean, when you were doing Broken English and all those things, there was other stuff going on in your life.
Broken English, yes, but strange weather, I was completely clean.
Yeah.
But there was still a much deeper, darker edge to my voice.
Yeah.
Which,
Let me play this Allen Ginsberg recording that we decided to bleep more than was necessary. So anyhow, that's probably the first time that guitars have ever actually been bleeped, you know, and it was a musical bleep too. It was like, you know, the tones changed and stuff. Now listen, Marianne Faithfull, this has been an absolute pleasure having you here on the radio tonight. The book is published in hardcover by Little Brown. It's called Faithfull, an Autobiography. As I said earlier, it's really not the typical rock autobiography, because something happens in it where you just, as a reader, and I've talked to others who have had the same experience, where you just absolutely get absorbed by your story, because it is such an absorbing story. I mean, it's an incredible tale.
And David did an awfully good job.
It's very well written.
We worked on it very hard. We did a lot of editing. And there's a whole thing where we continually flip from the present to the past to the future, which is a very interesting way of keeping someone's attention. And in fact, our publishers weren't at all sure that this would work. I was absolutely sure it would. I thought this is the only time you really can do that in an autobiography. I mean, it's what I think all the time, but it was really wonderful to do that. You know, to say, well, and this had happened in the past, and then this was going to come, and now this. Yeah,
there's a lot of projection.
Really goes in a circle.
Right. It's good stuff.
Good.
It certainly is good stuff, and the fact that you have come out of this as healthy and warm as you are, it's just.
I
know. It's wonderful.
Really?
Now there's an album coming out next year, I guess early in the new year, of all new material.
Well, it's my new album, which I worked on. I wrote it with Angelo Badalamenti.
Now he's the guy who did the David Lynch thing,
Twin Peaks, and a lot of David Lynch's music for his films. And of course, he's actually a working muso and has been for years.
Now there is one song from that forthcoming album that is on this compilation that just came out, that has been released, called Faithfull, which has come out in conjunction with the book. It's called She, and
we're very proud of that.
With my thanks to you for a wonderful evening of conversation, and for just being so open and honest and so real about it all. Because the feeling I got from your book is the feeling that I'm getting from you now, you know, talking to you, meeting you. And I must confess, I was a little scared. I was a little nervous about meeting you, because I thought, oh my God, Marianne Faithfull, why'd you do it? I mean, that Marianne Faithfull was a scary woman, you know. And you're wonderful, you're delightful. So I'm so glad that we did this.
It's lovely.
Marianne Faithfull.
As a wonderful new album, that song which we just played off the disc, we're going to get to a few live songs here in studio, but that song has such powerful imagery.
It's fabulous, and it really, they sketch it in. It's written by Greg Dully and Mark Lanigan, and they just sketch it very lightly. You know, they don't say much. There's not a big amount of words and explication. It's just really clever.
And on this new album, you co-wrote a bunch of tunes. You have always had a wonderful way with words. And we're going to talk to you about that in a moment.
Thank you.
But you've also...
I co-wrote too with Doug here. You know.
So we've got Doug Pettibone on guitar.
We have, yeah.
And but then there's a bunch of songs that written by others, like that one written by Greg Dully from the Afghan Wigs.
Yeah.
How do you come about material, Marianne? How do you for lack of a better word, you know, stay current with, like, who these guys are?
Well, I think a lot of it has got to do with Hal Wilner. You know, I'm really not particularly current, and I don't really care. When you asked me, I could play a song. She asked me to play one of my favourite songs, and I said,
let's play Chain of Fools. So I'm not bothered really, but Hal finds some of these wonderful things, and I do too. I find some wonderful songs too. Yeah.
Hal Wilner produced the record.
Yeah.
You've worked with Hal several times over the years.
Yeah.
That you, as I understand it, you met on the Kurt Weill tribute. Was that right?
Yes. That's when he, I mean, I guess he had to come and see me, and then I got to like him, and we became collaborators, yeah.
And artistically, and this is just my observation, you and Hal Wilner seem like sort of birds of a feather. Is that
I think we have quite similar taste, and we both have a strong pop sensibility. So, you know, when Hal wanted to do Past, Present and Future, I wasn't really sure, but I could see that it was a very interesting idea, and we risked it, and some people like it, some people don't, but I think it's interesting.
Those are often the best songs, Marianne, the ones that some like and some don't, right?
I know, yeah.
The song Marianne Faithfull is referring to is Past, Present, and Future, which is an old hit for the Shangri-Las, which some of you may remember, and you really do a dramatic reading of it on the record.
Well, I remember it, you know. I was living in Reading in 1962 or something like that, and I used to listen to it on Radio Luxembourg under the sheets, you know. And I'm sure a lot of everyone around the world was doing the same thing. It was so weird.
Yes.
And, of course, weird is good in my book, definitely. And now I sing it very much as, from my perspective. I'm 64, so it's quite different. It's not little girls moaning about love affairs that didn't work out. It's quite different.
And give us an example of how it's different, if you would.
Well, I guess I mean it more, you know. I sort of mean what I'm saying. Whereas if you're 18, how could you mean it? You know, I don't think it'll ever happen again. You know, of course it will.
Many times.
Yeah.
So that track is Past, Present, and Future on the CD, which is wonderful. We were going to do Prussian Blue.
We're going to start with.
Yeah, which is one that you co-wrote. Set this one up for us.
Well, I co-wrote this with Dave Courts, who's one of the people I really like working with. And he's not like the most brilliant guitarist in the world, but I grew up with him. He's a really old friend. And I like the way he writes, and it's very simple, and I like that. And we started writing together with Truth, Bitter Truth, and then we wrote, I can't remember what it was called, On Kissing Time.
That's right.
What was it called? Love, Life and Money? No. Love and Money.
Yep.
That was it. And now we've done this, and it's not much, but I kind of like them all.
Marianne Faithfull is our guest live on the radio here at WFUV.
Thanks, darling. Walking over the bridge to l'église américaine, 65 Quai d'Orsay. The river Mars Valley, the sky around Les Invalides, cerulean blue and scarlet lake. Can I make it? Can I get it? Can I make it for just one day? I listen to the rain falling grey to the ground. I can hear my heart calling many hearts around. Trees the color of jade, the church and gold, Quai d'Orsay, Rose d'Oreille. I'm going upstairs to take my place. Shadows of violet and Prussian blue. Can I make it? Can I bear it? Can I make it for just one day? I'll listen to the rain falling grey to the ground. I can hear my heart calling many hearts around. I'm walking along, leaving the church, feeling better in my heart of hearts. Sunset chrome yellow with a touch of white, clouds of lilac and leaden grey. Can I bear it? Can I stand it? Can I make it for just one day? I'll listen to the rain falling grey to the ground. I can hear my heart calling many hearts around. I listen to the rain falling grey to the ground. I can hear my heart falling many hearts around. It's a bit early in the morning to sing.
That is more than all right. That's Marianne Faithfull live on the radio with us here at FUV. Prussian Blue, the name of that. Horses in High Heels, the brand new record. Montreal Jazz Fest, you were just there. How was that?
It was fantastic. Really great. And I actually saw one of my favorite performers.
Who's that?
Daniel Lanois.
Oh, yes.
He was playing there with Black Dub, and it was amazing. If you know about Brian Blade.
The fantastic drummer.
Jesus Christ. He was
Well, it's funny. I follow Daniel Lanois on Twitter.
Oh, good.
And he tweeted the other night, "Thank you, Montreal, for the hottest night of my life."
It was very
So he
good.
was loving it, too.
Yeah.
And you've worked with Daniel Lanois.
I have, yeah, on Vagabond Ways.
Mm-hmm.
We worked together. And with his sound engineer, too, with Mark Howard, who was there, did the sound for Daniel. It was just fantastic. And that little girl, Trixie, she was so good. And she's 23, I think.
Trixie Whitley.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked her very much, too. And we went to see them afterwards, didn't we, Don?
We did.
We're both great fans and friends of Daniel. And Brian Blade.
And how was your performance? Was it, I saw the reviews were great.
Yeah. My performance was wonderful. Yeah. I know, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but it was. Quite honestly, wasn't it, Doug?
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And he got very good reviews, too. Doug Pettibone. Very good.
Horses in High Heels is the new record. I was just noticing online that you're also putting the CD out on vinyl.
Oh, yeah. And it has extra tracks on it. So what I would do, if I was you, anybody, is wait for the vinyl.
Right, and then you get it all.
Or even better, buy the CD and then buy the vinyl. But whatever you want, because the vinyl is wonderful. It sounds much better. And there are two bonus tracks on it. So.
And what are those two songs?
They're gorgeous. It's one that I first heard on Lil Band of Gold, that's C.C. Adcock. Mm-hmm. And it's called I Don't Want to Know. It's an old New Orleans song, isn't it, Doug?
It is. I can't remember who wrote it.
I can't remember who wrote it. But it's just fabulous. And another great song. This is where Hal and I were fighting quite a bit. Is should we put Past, Present and Future or Fragile Weapon? Or Past, Present and Future... I wanted to put Fragile Weapon. But Hal wanted to put Past, Present and Future. And I think in America people really understand that much more than in Europe, that choice.
Because of the Shangri-Las and New York. Yes.
Yeah. And we're all great fans. Whatever happened to Phil, I'm still a big fan.
We'll let that one sit right there.
Yeah.
Marianne, you
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. No, it's you recorded the album in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And for any of us who have ever been to that city, their music, it's like it's in the cracks of the sidewalk. There really is musically something quite special about New Orleans.
There's a special vibe, yeah. I didn't really expect that. We went there because we wanted to work with these great musicians. Mm-hmm. Like the drummer is Carlo Nuccio and George Porter Jr., the guy who started the Meters, if anybody remembers the Meters. Yeah, it's pretty good, and yes. That's an amazing rhythm section to have.
Fantastic.
And then we got some guests in. We got wonderful Wayne Kramer from MC5 on No Reason. And Lou Reed on, what is it?
He plays guitar in the last track.
He's on Back in Baby's Arms, too. And he's playing on The Old House, the song Frank wrote for me, Frank McGuinness, yeah.
Right. Paint us a picture. You guys are in New Orleans, you're making the record, Hal's there, Doug's there, George Porter Jr.'s on bass. Yeah. You're just like going out to dinner and then working all night.
Well,
not
with George. I would have loved to go out to dinner with him, but I don't think he goes out much, He's very quiet. Whereas we had to, because we were in a hotel. It was just great. I had a lovely, lovely time but really, it was work. We started at 11 in the morning. We only had an hour for lunch. I think I'm afraid food dictates where I'm going to go and what I'm going to do.
This is what I was trying to steer our conversation toward,
okay.
Yes.
Well, I love New York food, so here I am always. I'll jump at any chance to come to New York City. So will you. Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
Yes, and why not, right?
Yeah.
Marianne Faithfull is with us here at 90.7 FM WFUV. Why Did We Have to Part is the first single from the record and available as a free download on your website.
Yeah.
You have once or twice over the course of your career written a good breakup song.
I have.
There are a few we can't even play on the radio. Some of the big ones.
I've dropped that,
Yeah.
I've retired it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's all right.
Yeah. It served its purpose.
It did.
It had a time and a place for us.
Yeah.
Why Did We Have to Part is just a wonderful, and you wrote the lyrics for this one, right?
I wrote the words, and I changed the tune a bit. I don't know if Laurent Voulzy was very happy with that. I think he's very controlling. And
do you guys want to play that one live for us?
Yes, please.
Here's Why Do We Have to Part. Marianne Faithfull is our guest on FUV.
To part, my love. Why couldn't life just stay the same? It was over and I didn't know it. Living without you feels so strange. I remember the night when we met each other. It was a very long time ago. We both have changed for the better. We are so much kinder now, I know. Why did we have to part, my love? Why couldn't life just stay the same? It was over and I didn't know it. Living without you feels so strange. I remember the night you said you loved another. I simply could not take it in. What would I do without your love? So cold and lonely it begins. Why did we have to part, my love? Why couldn't life just stay the same? It was over and I didn't know it. Living without you feels so strange. We are very good friends, my love. We have passed through all the pain, but you know I'll never come back again. Why did we have to part, my love? Why couldn't life just stay the same? It was over and I didn't know it. Living without you feels so strange. Why did we have to part, my love? Why couldn't life just stay the same? It was over and I didn't know it. Living without you feels so strange.
That's Marianne Faithfull. Live in Studio A. A group of lucky members in the audience with us in here as well. Horses and High Heels is the brand new record from Marianne Faithfull. Album number 18. Do you keep tracks of such things?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
It's actually my 23rd album.
Well,
I know, we can discuss it. I'm open. What do you think?
I was maybe involved in old math. I'll trust your word on this.
Well, I don't really know because I can't do maths at all. So I'm actually talking through my hat. But I'll tell you who told me was my webmaster.
Okay.
Who's incredibly bright and brilliant. And
Oh, yeah.
speaks 3 languages and can do maths and can actually work a computer, which is even more amazing.
Well, I think we'll go with that one. I think we'll stick with the 23.
I love the 23. Yeah. It makes me sound as if I've been so busy, which I don't really remember being. But maybe I was.
Marianne, I've seen you perform in concert many times over the years, and there were just some incredible nights here in New York, like at the Bottom Line.
Oh, that was amazing. I remember it well, yeah.
You love the stage, and you've done a bunch of theater and film work as well. Were you always that sort of performer?
I was going to be an actress.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't been discovered, my intention was to go to RADA or the Central School of Art and Drama and become an actress.
Were there other actors in your family?
No, but my mother was a dancer with Max Reinhardt in Berlin before the war. So I grew up on stories of being on tour, and it became very natural to me to think of going on tour, which has been very useful. Because if you don't resist it too much, it's much easier. It's a hard life, though. But if you say, oh, well, I'm on tour, yeah.
Where do you live now? Where do you make your home?
I live in Paris and in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a little place in Ireland.
By the coast, on the coast?
County Waterford.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful. On the Strand. It's really beautiful. But I'm mostly in Paris, I have to say, because I'm working. And Paris is a great base for that, you know, for just to get on a plane to New York City or Montreal is much easier than in Ireland. You have to change and all that.
Marianne, you came to New York in the early 1980s, and that was just a crazy time here in New York. Musically, there was so much going on. Your career had just taken a huge
That was
turn.
with Broken Biscuits, wasn't it?
With Broken Biscuits,
I mean,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
What did you find when you landed in New York in the early 80s?
A lot of fun. A lot of good clubs.
Which ones were your favorites back then?
I can't remember.
Okay.
What were they called? All those?
Well, I remember Mud Club, Hurrah,
I remember
Area.
that. Yeah, Area, I remember. I just enjoyed them all. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Horses and High Heels is the new record for Marianne Faithfull. You recorded the record in New Orleans, and it just wouldn't have been right, Marianne, if you did not include a song on the album from Alan Toussaint.
I know.
So I want to play this.
Oh, good.
I want to play this one from the CD.
Sit down.
Yes, we could. We could sit. It's just such a super cool tune because you really kind of get your voice in this kind of soul place.
I think I'm better now on stage. Wayne Kramer and Doug Pettibone sort of really took me through it in rehearsal, and I've really nailed it now. But it's not bad on the record. No.
It's fantastic. Here's Back in Baby's Arms from the new Marianne Faithfull record on WFUV. Marianne Faithfull from the new album Horses and High Heels, Back in Baby's Arms. Alan Toussaint wrote that song. What a classic. Great song.
Yes, yes. It's a beautiful song. And the words are so good, you know. It's exactly what I approve of, just the lyrics for me, yeah.
Cool, but not too sentimental.
No. But very sort of on message, you know.
Marianne Faithfull's new record is just out. It's called Horses and High Heels and has a bunch of tunes that Marianne co-wrote and a couple of very well-chosen covers. The one that's up next here live in the studio is a song written by Leslie Duncan.
Yes.
But I think Elton John has probably been unfairly often credited with writing this song.
I think so, yeah. But it wasn't. It was Leslie Duncan.
And what attracted you to this song?
Well, it's just so beautiful. And I mean, I love Elton, really. But I was sure, and another person who recorded it was Olivia Newton-John. I was sure there was a much sort of hipper version in there. And I thought I could do it.
I wasn't sure if we were supposed to laugh there yet for a minute, and then yes.
It's not my fault I'm an old bat and still cool, you know.
That's right. Indeed you are, Marianne. Indeed you are. Do you guys want to play Love Song for us?
We'd love to.
All right.
Thank you. The words I have to say may well be simple, but they're true. Until you give your love, there's nothing more that we can do. Love is the opening door. Love is what we came here for. No one could offer you more. You know what I mean. Have your eyes really seen? You say it's very hard to leave behind the life we knew. But there's no other way, and now it's really up to you. the key we must turn. Truth is the lesson we must learn. Freedom is the flame we must burn. Do you know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen? Opening door. Love is what we came here for. No one could offer you more. Do you know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen? Do you know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen?
All right. Just a beautiful reading of that tune. Marianne Faithfull live on the radio with us here at FUV. Horses and High Heels is the title of the new record, with an album cover that does in fact feature a horse and a pair of high heels.
Nobody likes it except me.
Nobody likes the album cover?
No.
I think it's kind of cool and
love
kind of retro.
It's very kitsch, and you know.
It's got a little like paint by numbers kind of feel.
That's exactly, and it's like a game. You know, there are 7 horses in that picture.
Oh, I see.
And I
that
never
now.
got a chance. Yeah. Do you see?
Now I
Find
do.
them, you can
Yes,
play with it.
I see too. But I'll trust you
She's
that
also
there's
very
5
good
more.
to have something to play with. And I just was so sick of arty, moody pictures of me. You know.
The drama.
I thought, hey, and I always wanted a psychedelic cover, and I never had one, of course, when I was in the 60s. The nearest I got was a lovely picture on Love in a Mist with Elvis Presley on the tie. You know? But I don't think that was really psychedelic. It was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
Marianne, I'm curious to ask you, who are other artists that you respect, people whose career you could look at and say, yeah, that's a... Who do you see maybe as peers or as your sphere, your circle? Who are other artists that you say, yeah, she's okay or he's okay?
I really like Emmylou Harris. Of course, she's got a very beautiful voice, which I don't, but I really like her, and I like her career. I like people who move on, you know. I like people who don't stay stuck in the past and just go forward. I think that's a very healthy way to be. I mean, I know, you know, I don't think they're my peers. I think they're far greater than me. But Aretha, Billie Holiday, who's way, way ahead of me. But I thought, you know, I mean, technically she had a very difficult career. But in retrospect, it's so wonderful. Mm-hmm. I like Elton, you know. I know he's a bit silly, but I do like him.
And then I was also thinking, extending off of that, the artists that you've influenced. And there's so many artists like whose music I love. The first guy who comes to mind is Anthony and the Johnsons.
Anthony, I don't know if I've influenced Anthony. He affected Easy Come, Easy Go. I think I've influenced Rufus Wainwright. And possibly Nick Cave, and possibly Polly.
P.J. Harvey.
P.J. Harvey, yeah. And Chan, perhaps. Chan Marshall. I don't know. It's best
just
not to claim things, you know.
Right,
because they might be furious.
But it's interesting to see the connections among artists, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Rufus is easy, because I knew his mother very well. His mother was Kate McGarrigle. So he dropped into my lap, really, from a very early age.
You and Kate were good friends?
We were, yeah, for years. Yeah.
Wonderful. Marianne, we're going to let you play DJ now.
Oh.
So we'll let you play something that you want to play for everybody, something old, new, anything at all. The next pick is all yours.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to play for all of you out there and those of you in here is what I call the voice of God. There are a few voices of God. One of them is Sam Cooke. We could say Billie Holiday. Hank Williams could be the voice of God. But this is Aretha Franklin singing Chain of Fools.
With our thanks to Marianne Faithfull for the visit.
Is Marianne Faithfull.
I walk along the street of sorrow, the boulevard of broken dreams, where gigolo and gigolette can take a kiss without regret till they forget their broken dreams. You laugh tonight and cry tomorrow when you behold your shattered scheme. And gigolo and gigolette wake up to find their eyes are wet with tears that tell of broken dreams. Here is where you'll always find me, always walking up and down. But I left my soul behind me in an old cathedral town. The joy that you find here, you borrow. You cannot keep it long, it seems. And gigolo and gigolette still sing a song and dance along the boulevard of broken dreams. The joy that you find here, you borrow. You cannot keep it long, it seems. And gigolo and gigolette still sing a song and dance along the boulevard of broken Turned 16 that season when you came up from Burma to stay,
and you told me I ought to travel with you. You were sure it would be okay. When I asked how you earned your living, I can still hear what you said to me. You had some kind of job on the rail, but had nothing to do with the sea. You said a lot, Johnny, all one big lie, Johnny. You cheated me blind, Johnny, from the minute we met. I hate you so, Johnny, when you stand there grinning, Johnny. Take that damn pipe out of your mouth, you rat. Surabaya Johnny, no one's meaner than you. Surabaya Johnny, my God, and I still love you so. Surabaya Johnny, why am I feeling so blue? You have no heart, Johnny, and I still love you so. At the start, every day was Sunday, till we went on our way one fine night. And before 2 more weeks were over, you thought nothing I did was right. So we trekked up and down through the Punjab, from the source of the river to the sea. When I look at my face in the mirror, there's an old woman staring back at me. You didn't want love, Johnny. You wanted cash, Johnny. But I saw your lips, Johnny, and that was that. You wanted it all, Johnny. I gave you more, Johnny. Take that damn pipe out of your mouth, you rat. Surabaya Johnny, no one's meaner than you. Surabaya Johnny, my God, and I still love you so. Surabaya Johnny, why am I feeling so blue? You have no heart, Johnny, and I still love you so. I would never have thought of asking how you got that peculiar name. But from one end of the coast to the other, you were known everywhere we came. And one day in a 2-bit flophouse, I'll wake up to the roar of the sea, and you'll leave without one word of warning on a ship waiting down at the quay. You have no heart, Johnny. You're just a louse, Johnny. How will you go, Johnny, and leave me flat? You're still my love, Johnny, like the day we met, Johnny. Take that damn pipe out of your mouth, you rat. Surabaya Johnny, no one's meaner than you. Surabaya Johnny, my God, and I still love you, sir. Surabaya Johnny, why am I feeling so blue? You have no heart, Johnny, and I still love you so. Now we come to this good ending. Happily all hands unite, and with money in your pocket, you can cling up. Price is right. There are some who dwell in darkness. There are others bathed in light. You can see those who are shining, those in darkness pass from sight. You can see those who are shining, those in darkness pass from sight.
And we've been listening to Marianne Faithfull in Sunday Concert this week. I must admit at first I wondered, but she really does it well, don't you think? Next week we'll be hearing from some artists who also kicked off their careers in England in the 1960s, but wound up heading in a very different direction. I'm referring to Steel Eye Span with lead singer Maddie Pryor. And they'll be singing some of their best-known hits. That's next week in Sunday Concert. I'm Stephen Snellerman, and thanks go to Penny Orban and Wayne Chapman, as usual. What's more, Penny Lomax is the executive producer of Sunday Concert. I hope you can join me next time for Steel Eye Span. Don't forget you can hear some of the best in this program, as I hope you already know. That's at our regular time of 4:05 on Sunday afternoons, or the following Saturday night at 10:05 after a swag of yarns. Goodbye till then.
Years ago, when I left Australia last time, I went back to start rehearsals as Pirate Jenny in a new production of the Threepenny Opera at the Gate Theatre in Dublin. And it was a new translation made by this funny man I didn't know, but he was to become one of my best friends, Big and Red, Frank McGuinness. And the most wonderful translations. And we did this show for 3 months at the Gate. And then I went on and did something else, you know. But it came up again when I met Paul and we started to work on this show, which is about 2 years ago now. Yeah. And we decided to use Frank's translations. So we do 3 songs from the Threepenny Opera. We do Pirate Jenny's song, the Salomon Song, and then nearer the end we do Mack the Knife. And these are all Frank translating Brecht, and they're wonderful. I hope, yeah, I think you'll like them. So in this one, Jenny is having a fantasy about what she would do to the people who oppress her if she had the power. You'll lads see me dunk the glasses, wash the floors, make the beds, and the best of servants. You can kindly throw me pennies and I thank you very much. You see me ragged and tattered in this dirty shit hotel. You don't know in hell who's talking. You still don't know in hell who's talking. Yet one fine day there will be Ross from the harbour, and you'll ask what is all that screeching for? And you'll see me smiling as I dunk the glasses, and you'll say, what's she got to smile at for? And the ship 8 sails shining, 55 cannons wide, sir, waits there at the quay. You say, work on, wipe the glasses, my girl, and you slip me a dirty sixpence, and your pennies will be taken and your beds will be made. But I doubt if 40 winks will come anybody's way. You still don't know in hell who's talking. You still don't know in hell who's talking. Still, one fine day there'll be a loud bang from the harbour. You'll ask Jesus Christ what was that bang? And you'll see me standing right behind the window, and you'll say, why's she got the evil eye? And the ship, 8 sails shining, 55 cannons wide, sir, will be aimed at this town. So then, lads, time for tears. No more laughs at the bar. The walls will be at your ankles. And look out, lads, the town will be flat as the ground. This dirty shit hotel will be spared rack and ruin. And you'll say, who's the fancy bitch lives there? You'll say, who's the fancy bitch lives there? There'll be rows of people running round the hotel. And you'll ask, why should they have spared this hovel? And you'll see me in the morning leaving lightly. And you'll say, that one, her, she lived there. The same ship, 8 sails shining, 55 cannons wide, sir, flies, crossbones and skull. In the midday sun, 100 men will step ashore, all tramping where your shadows crawled. They'll lay their hands on men, hiding shit scared behind doors, lead them in chains here before this silent woman, and they'll say, well, which ones shall we kill? They'll say, which ones shall we kill? Come the dot of 12, it will be still in the harbour. Oh, when they ask me, well, who's going to die? And you'll hear me whispering, oh, so sweetly, all of them. And as the soft heads fall, I'll say, hopla! And the ship, 8 sails shining, 55 cannons wide, sir, disappears with me. Frighten myself. You know, when you're little, when you tell ghost stories to each other and you terrify yourself. Oh, God. Oh. You see, unfortunately, I'm English enough to feel uncomfortable when I'm emotional, but I'm not English enough not to be emotional. You know what I mean? I know it's not done where I come from, but I am emotional. There we are. Never mind. This one now is the Salomon Song. In the story, it's Jenny that really shops Mack Heath in the play. She gets him hanged. And in this song, she's thinking about it. She's reflecting, empirical murder, really. She's reflecting on great characters of history who came to terrible ends because of some flaw in their makeup. So she starts with Solomon, and then Cleopatra, and then, of course, she gets to Mack Heath. And we can deduce from this what will happen. And it's one of the most beautiful, it's the line in this song that Frank used in the preface to my book, which is, how sad the heart when it has won, which is so beautiful. Aha. You saw the wise man Salomon. You know what came of him. To him the world seemed clear as day. He cursed the sad hour that he saw the sun. He knew that everything was dust. How great and wise was Solomon. Watch out, the world is spinning fast. The night will fall, the price will pay. Such wisdom's not all it's cracked up to be. So let us praise such clarity. You saw divine Cleopatra. You know what came of her. Two emperors died to serve her lust. She whored herself to death, yes she did, and withered into lovely dust. How beautiful, great Babylon. Watch out, the world is spinning fast. The night will fall, the price will pay. Such beauty's not all it's cracked up to be. So let us praise such luxury. Behold the man, the bold Mack Heath, the end's in sight, I fear. If he had kept his pretty head and just robbed the rich, but oh no, instead, all's come to naught and turn to dust. How sad the heart when it has won. Watch out, the world is spinning fast. The night will fall, the price will pay. Such whoring's not all it's cracked up to be. So let us praise sweet chastity. When the Nazis burnt his manuscripts in the public squares in Berlin, Kurt Weill realized it was time to split. So him and Lotte Lenya, he and Lotte Lenya went to Paris, where they stopped for a bit, and I once had to do a concert in County Cork, in the city of Cork, I believe it was, and my old science teacher was in the audience, who was a nun. And I had to censor everything. Sometimes I get that feeling. Sister Aiden is in the audience tonight. But I know she's not. I liked her a lot. It's probably somebody likes Sister Aiden. Where were we? Yes.
Don't worry about it.
We were in Paris. But as long as you remember, then I'll be okay. Well, yeah. So they went to Paris. And here in Paris, there in Paris, I mean, he wrote this song with another, a lyricist called Maurice Magre, who was very famous then. He wrote songs for all the great French music hall artists of the time, like Arletty and Maurice Chevalier and so on. And it's a very brilliant song. It's called Complainte de la Seine. It's what if you could look into the river Seine, what would you find? Au fond de la Seine, il y a de l'or, des bateaux rouillés, des bijoux, des armes. Au fond de la Seine, il y a des morts. Au fond de la Seine, il y a des larmes. Au fond de la Seine, il y a des fleurs, de vases et de boue. Elles sont nourries. Au fond de la Seine, il y a des cœurs qui souffriront trop pour vivre la vie. Et puis des cailloux et des bêtes grises, l'âme des égouts soufflant des poisons, les anneaux jetés par des incomprises, les pieds qu'une lie a coupé du tronc. Et les fruits maudits des ventres stériles, les blancs avortés que nul n'aima, les vomissements de la grande ville. Au fond de la Seine, il y a cela. Ô Seine clémente, au vent des cadavres, au lit dans les draps, sans fait de limon. Fleuve des déchets, sans fanat ni havre, chanteuse versant la mort et les ponts. Accueille les pauvres, accueille la femme, accueille les vrognes, accueille le fou. Mêle leurs sanglots au bruit de tes lames et porte le cœur, et porte le cœur, et porte le cœur parmi les cailloux. Au fond de la Seine, il y a de l'or, des bateaux rouillés, des bijoux, des armes. de la Seine, il y a des morts. Au fond de la Seine, il y a des larmes.
Thank you.
The war, the Second World War, kicked off. Sorry to be so flippant. It's the only way I know how to deal with all these feelings. Anyway, it did. And Kurt Weill left Europe forever. Wise idea, I thought. And went to New York City, where he lived with Lotte Lenya in an apartment, started to write with other people, other things, and I really do think they had a pretty good time, quite a happy life there. Paul gave me this lovely book a few months ago. I haven't actually read it yet, but it's by my bedside at home. You know that. And it's their letters to each other. It's called Speak Low. And really, as marriages go, it sounds like pretty good, you know. What would I know, of course. Anyway, it's 1942. Brecht had stayed in Germany, and now he couldn't take it anymore. And he was coming to the States too. And he went to Los Angeles. And you have to remember that at that moment, during the Second World War, there were hardly anybody. It must have been very lonely for Kurt Weill and Lenya. In maybe 10 people in the whole of America, or 15, 20 tops, knew really what was going on in Europe. And, yeah, you know. So Brecht coming over must have been very exciting. And Kurt Weill immediately got on an aeroplane and flew to Los Angeles. Went to see his old friend, who was living in Santa Monica, of all places. And it was, what was going on at that moment in Europe, at the end of 42 and the beginning of 43, was absolutely crucial. Nobody knew that yet, but it was. It was the Battle of Stalingrad. And it was a very serious moment. And these two really knew that. And they knew. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So they decided to write a song. It's sort of about this, to mark it, I think. That's what I think. And this is the song we're going to do now. It's called What Was Sent to the Soldier's Wife. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the ancient city of Prague? From Prague came a pair of high-heeled shoes. With a kiss or two came the high-heeled shoes from the ancient city of Prague. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Oslo over the Sound? From Oslo he sent her a collar of fur, how it pleases her, the little collar of fur, Oslo over the Sound. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the wealth of Amsterdam? From Amsterdam, he got her a hat. She looked sweet in that, in the little Dutch hat, from the wealth of Amsterdam. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Brussels in Belgian land? From Brussels he sent her the laces so rare to have and to wear. Oh, those laces so rare from Brussels in Belgian land. What was sent to the soldier's wife from Paris, city of light? From Paris he sent her a silken gown. It was envied in town, that silken gown. From Paris, city of light. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the south, from Bucharest? From Bucharest, he got her a shirt, embroidered and hurt, that Romanian shirt from the south, from Bucharest. What was sent to the soldier's wife from the far-off Russian land? From Russia he sent her a widow's veil for her dead to bewail in her widow's veil. From the far-off Russian land, from the far-off Russian land. I'd like to introduce to you my friend, my musical director, and my accompanist. Please, Mr. Paul Trueblood. I'm much too sentimental. My heart is never free. Perhaps it's accidental that love should come to me. Some little thing within me protects me for a while, till someone comes to win me with only a smile. Falling in love again, never wanted to. What am I to do? Can't help it. Love's always been my game. Play it how I may. I was made that way. Can't help it. Men cluster to me like moths around a flame, I know I'm not to blame. Falling in love again. Never wanted to. What am I to do? Can't help it. Ich bin von Kopf bis Fuß auf Liebe eingestellt, denn das ist meine Welt, sonst gar nichts. Sonst gar nichts. Oh, the poor shark, yes, the sweet shark. It has big teeth buried deep. Then there's Mackie with his big knife, but it's hidden in his sleep. And the same shark, this poor sweet shark, it sheds red blood when it bleeds. Mackie Big Knife wears a white glove, pure in word and pure in deed. Sunday morning, lovely blue sky, there's a corpse stretched on the strand. Who's your man cruising the corner? Oh, well, it's Mackie, knife in hand. Jenny Towler, poor wee Jenny, there they found her, knife in breast. Mackie's wandering on the west pier, hoping only for the best. Mind that fire burns all through Soho. 7 kids dead, 1 old flower. Hey there, Mackie, how's she cutting? Have another. Hold your hour. And those sweet babes under 60, story goes there, black and blue, for the price of 1 good screw in. Mackie, Mackie, how could you? For the price of 1 good screw in. Mackie, Mackie, how could you? is it that civilized humanity can make the world so wrong? In this hurly-burly of insanity, our dreams cannot last long. We've reached a deadline, a press headline. Every sorrow, blues value is news value tomorrow. Blues, 20th century blues, getting me down. Escape those weary 20th century blues. Why, if there's a God in the sky, why shouldn't he grin high above this dreary 20th century din? In this strange illusion, chaos and confusion, people seem to lose their way. What is there to strive for, love or keep alive for? Say hey, hey, call it a day. Blues, nothing to win or to lose. It's getting me down. Who's escaped those dreary 20th century blues? We've reached a deadline, a press headline. Blues, nothing to win or to lose. It's getting me down. Who's escaped those weary century blues? Keep your feet warm, keep your clothes on, and don't forget me. Keep the memory, but keep your powder dry too. In the summer, by the poolside, while the fireflies are all around me, I'll miss you when I'm lonely. I'll miss the alimony too. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too. fall of cancer. It doesn't matter now. Come on, get happy. 'Cause nothing lasts forever, but I will always love you. Don't forget, please don't forget me. Make it easy on me just for a little while. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too. Keep your feet warm, keep your clothes on, and don't forget me. Keep the memory, but keep your powder dry too. In the summer, by the poolside, while the fireflies are all around me, I'll miss you when I'm lonely. I'll miss the alimony too. Don't forget me, please don't forget me. Make it easy on me just for a little while. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too. When we're older and full of cancer, it doesn't matter now. Come on, get happy. 'Cause nothing lasts forever, but I will always love you. Don't forget, please don't forget me. Make it easy on me just for a little while. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too. You know I think about you. Let me know you think about me too.